False relationships may be difficult to recognize, just as it is difficult to differentiate between a mirage and an oasis in the vast desert that is human contact. The secret is to surround yourself solely with individuals who are positive and whose presence empowers you to be the greatest version of yourself. Finding out who actually cares about us is an art that involves not just intuition, but also a sharp eye. In a society that is full of encounters and disconnections, where masks of cordiality and self-interest are masterfully worn, it is a challenge to figure out who is truly concerned about us. At times, we find ourselves placing an excessive amount of faith in the generosity and good intent of other people, while in reality, we are being exploited. This is analogous to the way an expert gardener is able to differentiate between plants that are able to nourish and those that are able to collect nutrients from the soil. We need to acquire the ability to discern those individuals in our life who are genuine allies, as well as those who are emotional parasites. It is for this reason that we will now discuss the subtle indicators and patterns that are less evident, which disclose the underlying objectives that lie beneath smiles and hollow promises. Because you are here, it is because you are interested in personal growth. In this material, we will examine the wisdom of understanding these human enigmas, which will illuminate the path to relationships that are more genuine and satisfying. Let's get started. Above anything else, remarks that diminish. Individuals who routinely use other people as stepping stones for their own personal profit are professionals in the use of diminutive remarks as an instrument of erosion. Their targets experience a decline in their self-esteem, confidence, and feeling of self-worth as a result of these insults. Despite the fact that they are frequently camouflaged as comedy or casual chat, these statements are really sharp hooks that are intended to bring down rather than to build up. It is possible for them to minimize your achievements, make fun of your goals, or demonstrate a lack of interest and insensitivity to the difficulties and problems you are facing. Due to the fact that it often undervalues, this conduct is comparable to subtle psychological warfare, since it creates an imbalance in the existing relationship. The purpose of this action is to guarantee that you continue to be in a state of uncertainty and low self-esteem, which will make you more vulnerable to being manipulated and controlled. Your low self-esteem, in their perspective, boosts their prestige, which in turn strengthens their position as the dominating party in the relationship. Furthermore, such condescending remarks often mirror the fears and feelings of inadequacy that the speaker is experiencing. They are attempting to conceal their own frailties and present an image of superiority by acting in a manner that is demeaning to other people. This conduct is a strong indication that they are unable to build relationships that are healthy, helpful, and reciprocal, and that include both parties. Recognizing and comprehending this pattern of conduct is of utmost importance. It enables you to see through the superficial charm that these individuals often present and to comprehend the harmful dynamics that lie under the surface of the connection. It should act as a warning to confront the behavior immediately, establish clear boundaries, or remove yourself from an atmosphere that is so poisonous. The second place, promises that are broken. The act of making and breaking promises might be compared to a theatrical play in which words are the performers and deeds are the sloppy script. By presenting vivid visions of dedication and support, these individuals have perfected the art of verbal persuasion and have achieved absolute mastery. However, the actions that they speak about are often lacking in substance. When it comes time to put these painted fantasies into reality, they pause, showing the emptiness of their guarantees. They begin by creating expectations with the flourish of a painter, but when it comes time to turn these dreams into reality, they hesitate. There is a pattern that forms in this kind of connection based on the times when their assistance is required the most and when their promise ought to be fulfilled. The disappearance of these individuals often results in a vacuum that is brimming with despair and disappointment. This lack of presence during times of crisis is not only a violation of trust, but it also serves as a clear indication of their genuine objectives. The promises that they make are instruments of manipulation that are meant to amass value, trust, or support without the aim of receiving anything in return. As a result, the inability to maintain commitments becomes a type of test that differentiates between those who see relationships as a two-way street built on mutual respect and support, and others who view relationships as nothing more than avenues for their own personal benefit. Those who are left in the lurch often learn a painful but useful lesson as a result of the experience. Not all promises are founded on honesty and integrity. Consequently, the inability to fulfill commitments is an essential behavior that should be observed, comprehended, and identified in order to detect those who may aim to exploit other people. Number unilateral benefit. This may show in a variety of aspects of a relationship, including financial, emotional, and practical aspects. When it comes to money, the user may borrow money or resources with the expectation of repaying them or receiving anything in return, but this never happens. In terms of their emotional well-being, they may be too reliant on one another for support, affirmation, and attention, while providing very little or nothing in return. In situations when the roles are nearly reversed, one person may be continuously asking for favors, assistance, or time, but when the other person needs aid, they may be noticeably missing or too busy to provide it. The concept of unilateral benefit in nature is analogous to the concept of a parasitic relationship, in which one creature benefits at the cost of another organism. In the same way that a parasite receives sustenance, in this example, emotional, financial, or practical assistance, the user receives it without giving equally or properly to the well-being of their host. This lack of reciprocity may, over time, exhaust the resources of the provider, whether they be emotional, financial, or temporal resources, leaving them feeling depleted and disappointed than they were before. It is common for the reasons for unilateral advantage to stem from a profound lack of empathy and a profound sense of selfishness. When it comes to relationships, the user has a transactional perspective, meaning that they evaluate interactions primarily on what they can obtain rather than what they can provide to the connection. This approach to relationships is inherently faulty because it ignores the natural significance of showing respect for one another, providing support for one another, and giving and receiving. The recognition of this pattern calls for a perceptive eye. It entails detecting the sense of being continually shortchanged in the connection, as well as the persistent lack of reciprocity that exists inside the relationship. An honest evaluation is required to determine if the encounters make you feel appreciated and respected, or whether they make you feel used and undervalued, or both. This is the fourth. This behavioral pattern, in which one's emotional landscape is constantly disregarded or undervalued, is analogous to caring to a garden in which just one flower is allowed to blossom while others are neglected. It is a pattern of conduct that makes it difficult to pay attention to one's feelings or needs. In these kinds of interactions, the user's wants and requirements are given priority, while your own are reduced to a secondary position or ignored entirely. As a result of their behaviors and words, your emotional well-being is harmed, and you experience feelings of being undervalued and invisible within the context of the relationship. This disdain may present itself in a variety of styles. It may be obvious in the way that they consistently disregard your emotional needs by failing to provide support or empathy when you are in a vulnerable or needing situation. It is also possible to see their apathy to your viewpoints and decisions, which results in your voice being stifled by the narrative that they perceive to be the most important. It is possible that they may disregard your accomplishments or, even worse, minimize the difficulties you have faced, so diminishing the problems that have a significant impact on you. This conduct is not only insensitive, rather, it is deliberate neglect, which is a strategy that is used to retain a position of dominance in the relationship by negating your emotions and needs. Because the user cultivates an atmosphere in which your sense of self-worth is diminished, you become more sensitive to the user's ability to exert influence and control over you. In spite of its modest nature, it is a sort of emotional manipulation that has a big influence. The fact that this dynamic has an effect on the fundamental foundation of emotional well-being, namely, the desire to be heard, understood, and valued, appears to be particularly detrimental. When these requirements are disregarded on a consistent basis, it may result in a decline in self-esteem and a feeling of loneliness, even if you are in a relationship that seems to be active. It is crucial to be able to spot the indicators of emotional neglect in order to successfully navigate these seas. This awareness acts as a lighthouse, directing you away from relationships that put your emotional well-being in jeopardy. It gives you the ability to seek out interactions in which reciprocity, respect, and mutual care are the underlying pillars. This is the fifth. When it comes to manipulating people's emotions, it often begins in a sneaky manner, with the manipulator portraying themselves as attentive and caring. This mask, on the other hand, swiftly transforms into a strategy that allows them to coerce their target into experiencing emotions of fear, inadequacy, or guilt. When it is convenient for them, they will praise you in order to boost your confidence, and then they will aggressively criticize or undermine you in order to sow seeds of doubt and dependence in you. They will become skilled at pushing emotional buttons. Take into consideration the comparison between a gardener and a beautiful plant. A thoughtful gardener tends to their plants by ensuring that they get the appropriate quantity of sunshine and water. The emotional manipulator, on the other hand, is similar to a careless gardener in that they fluctuate between overwatering the plant and allowing it to wither away due to a lack of water. They use strong emotional states in order to destabilize the victim, so creating an atmosphere in which the target becomes emotionally reliant on the manipulator and is continuously looking for acceptance from the manipulator in order to recapture that original feeling of warmth. It is common for this manipulation to target the very center of an individual's emotional well-being. They could minimize your accomplishments or exaggerate your shortcomings in order to maintain a condition of continual uncertainty in your mind. They may manipulate circumstances in order to make you feel bad for behaviors that are not unusual, shifting responsibility in order to guarantee that you will constantly apologize. When there is emotional manipulation in a relationship, the power dynamic is always skewed in the other direction. The manipulator maintains control by determining when to show love and when to withhold it, therefore maintaining a condition of emotional reliance on the person they are manipulating. On the contrary, this dynamic is not about mutual development or support. Rather, it is about satisfying the wants of the manipulator at the cost of the emotional well-being of the other person. Having a keen awareness of these interactions is necessary in order to discover instances of emotional manipulation. Recognizing patterns of engagement in which sentiments are routinely controlled and engaging in introspection to get an understanding of how these interactions impact one's sense of self and emotional well-being are both required steps in this process. This is the sixth, a lack of true support. Imagine a tree in a huge forest, which is supported by the trees and plants that surround it. In a perfect world, the tree would get sustenance, shelter, and the companionship of a vibrant ecosystem. Let us now envision a tree that is completely alone in a dry terrain, with no other plants to provide it with support or protection. In this way, it is comparable to being in a relationship with someone who does not show true care in your health and happiness. In the absence of any support, you find yourself all by yourself, with your branches searching for company that never comes. You may find that your objectives, initiatives, and difficulties are greeted with disinterest or with symbolic gestures of support in these kinds of partnerships. It is possible that this individual may not oppose your intentions, provide you with a little of good luck, or even openly express their support. Nonetheless, their actions, or lack thereof, speak louder than their words. When it comes to providing concrete aid, useful counsel, or even just a listening ear during difficult times, the explanation for this lack of true support rests in the fact that they take a self-centered attitude. Insofar as they have an impact on them or their goals, your achievements or failures, your difficulties or interests are the only things that they are concerned about. They have a transactional perspective on relationships, in which the emotional commitment they make is evaluated depending on the prospective personal benefits they may get. This mindset results in an imbalance in which one party consistently contributes, whether it be in terms of labor, care, or resources, while the other side enjoys the benefits. When it comes to preserving emotional well-being and cultivating relationships that are founded on mutual respect and reciprocity, it is essential to recognize certain patterns that occur inside a relationship. It gives you the ability to navigate through deceitful actions and to develop connections that contribute favorably to your life. Given conclusion, the ability to recognize fake relationships is a talent that becomes more important given the intricate terrain of human interactions. Intuition, self-awareness, and the capacity to recognize subtle patterns of behavior are all characteristics that are necessary for this accomplishment. You will be able to travel the landscape of relationships more efficiently if you are aware of the indicators that indicate decreasing remarks, broken promises, unilateral benefit, emotional neglect, and manipulation. Because of this understanding, you will have the ability to build relationships that are genuine, helpful, and gratifying, which will significantly contribute to your overall well-being. It is important to keep in mind, as you begin on this path of interpreting human dynamics, that true relationships are built on trust, respect, and a shared commitment to development and well-being within the partnership. The seventh is that there is always competition. Imagine playing a game of chess in which every move is carefully considered not just to enhance one's own position, but also to progressively degrade the position of every opponent. In a similar vein, a person who is simply interested in using you will often approach your relationship as if it were a game of strategy. Every one of your accomplishments, choices, or even obstacles becomes a chance for them to demonstrate their superiority. They may do this by overshadowing your professional triumphs, exceeding your personal accomplishments, or subtly undercutting the decisions you make. The urge to maintain a competitive advantage in this self-imposed battle is the driving force behind their acts. The ongoing competitiveness that exists in a professional context presents itself in a variety of different ways. There is a possibility that they may attempt to extinguish you at meetings or grab credit for your ideas. In the context of personal interactions, they may belittle your experiences or accomplishments by often comparing them to their own in order to look more relevant, even in informal chats. In the backdrop, there is a conspicuous attempt to demonstrate that they are superior, more intelligent, or more accomplished than others. The origin of this conduct may be traced back to a profound sense of insecurity and a skewed vision of one's own worth. in which the individual's value is not determined by their own attributes, but rather by their superiority over others. From this point of view, every contact is transformed into a zero-sum game in which you must become the loser in order for them to emerge victorious. It is a mindset in which the drive to triumph and distinguish oneself takes precedence over the progress of both parties involved. It may be emotionally draining to interact with someone who displays this kind of persistent rivalry throughout the relationship. A perpetually tense atmosphere is produced as a result, one in which true cooperation or support is substituted by competition. Your triumphs are not recognized but rather seen as threats to their supremacy, and your tribulations are not treated with empathy but rather as chances for them to gain an advantage. Recognition and comprehension of this pattern are of the utmost importance. It is beneficial in that it helps to establish limits and, if at all feasible, recalibrate the relationship in the direction of a more collaborative and healthy dynamic. In order to do this, it is necessary to acknowledge that the core of every healthy relationship is not a never-ending competition for supremacy, but rather mutual respect and support. Absence at crucial moments, number 8 on the list. This pattern of behavior is like to a tree that only offers shade while the light is not too strong, but it vanishes when there are clouds in the sky. In times of prosperity, when everything is going according to plan, they are there, basking in the glow of their shared light and maybe receiving the rewards of their connection. However, when circumstances change, when difficulties come, and when help is required, their presence decreases, leaving you to face the storm on your own. In the eyes of these individuals, relationships are nothing more than a convenience, a means to a goal, and their participation is appraised primarily on the personal benefits they get. The assistance that they provide is merely cosmetic, and it is only extended when it is in accordance with their interests or when there is something to gain. When things are at their worst, whether it be a personal catastrophe, a career loss, or emotional anguish, their absence is felt. When they are in a situation when they need real assistance and empathy, it is at these times that their actual priorities and lack of commitment to the relationship become readily apparent. This action might have a significant influence on the one who is experiencing feelings of disappointment. The trust and dependability that were perceived to be essential components of the relationship are undermined as a result of this, which contributes to feelings of betrayal and disappointment. The nature of the connection is called into question, which often results in a reassessment of the responsibilities and significance of the other in one's life. It is necessary to have an understanding of this pattern in order to have an understanding of the nature of the connection and the genuine intentions of the other person. It is necessary to acknowledge that the provision of consistent support, both during times of happiness and times of difficulty, is essential to the development of any meaningful relationship. Having the knowledge that someone is missing at your most crucial times acts as a crucial test that helps differentiate between those who are actually devoted to your well-being and those who are in the relationship just for their personal advantage. At this point in the video, you have reached the halfway point already. I would want to offer my sincere congratulations on your efforts to improve yourself, and I would also like to respectfully request that you post a remark on my channel, since doing so is of great assistance to me. If you are at a loss for what to comment on, just put "my mind over body" to let me know that you have made it this far. Additionally, don't forget to subscribe to get other materials similar to this one. The 9th problem is a lack of reciprocity. Imagine that one side of a seesaw is heavy with the weight of the efforts, sacrifices, and commitments that have been made, while the other side is light and empty of any contributions that are equal to the weight on the other side. A connection that does not include reciprocity is shown by this picture. In these kinds of relationships, you make a continuing investment of your time, energy, and emotions in an effort to cultivate and maintain the connection. On the other hand, the contributions made by the other individual are either little, often symbolic, or completely missing. This difference in effort might present itself in a number of different ways. Despite the fact that their reactions are either lukewarm or uncommitted, it is possible that you will always be the one to initiate contact and make arrangements. You may not get the same amount of empathy or aid when you need it, despite the fact that you provide consistent support and understanding. In spite of the fact that you may be open and honest while discussing your own experiences and abilities, they may continue to be reluctant or uninterested. This lack of reciprocity may be traced back to an approach to relationships that is oriented on the individual's own need for satisfaction. For the one who is solely interested in taking advantage of you, the connection is nothing more than a convenience, a resource that can be used whenever it is required, and there is no intention of engaging in meaningful exchange. Without taking into account the requirements and emotions of the other individual, their involvement is estimated and conditioned to a degree that is beneficial to them. The nature of good relationships, which depend on reciprocal give and take, shared experiences, and a balanced investment of emotional effort, is undermined by this approach, which goes against the core of healthy partnerships. In order to recognize the absence of reciprocity, it is necessary to make a deliberate study of the dynamics behind the interaction. The question that has to be asked is whether the efforts to sustain and build the relationship are jointly shared, or if you unfairly claim responsibility for them. In order to determine if the connection is empowering or depleting, equitable or unbalanced, it is necessary to conduct an honest evaluation of the situation. The 10th thing is betrayal. In the context of a romantic partnership, betrayal is analogous to a fissure in the foundation of a structure. Even while it may begin in a little manner and go undetected, it has the potential to gradually undermine the whole structure and finally result in its collapse. The act of betraying someone may take many forms, ranging from falsehoods and deception to more comprehensive betrayals. For example, a lack of openness and honesty in communication is an indication that someone has betrayed you. In the event that you find out that the other person is frequently lying or hiding facts, this should serve as a warning sign. Sincerity serves as the cornerstone upon which trust is constructed, while betrayal is the act that destroys that foundation. It is also possible to betray someone by not showing emotional allegiance to them. In the event that the other person does not provide you with support at difficult times, if they divulge your secrets, or if they sabotage your efforts, this demonstrates a lack of emotional commitment on their part. There is also the possibility of betrayal in the form of adultery, which may be either emotional or physical. Damage that is both profound and long-lasting may be caused by betrayal in a love relationship. Being aware of the warning indicators and having faith in your intuition are both necessary components in order to identify treachery. It is important to not disregard discrepancies in conduct or unexpected shifts in the manner in which they treat you. Communication that is both open and honest is required while dealing with betrayal. As soon as you become aware that either you or the other person has been disloyal, it is of the utmost importance to approach the problem with compassion and a sincere desire to comprehend the factors that led to the disloyalty. Setting clear boundaries and making choices that safeguard your emotional well-being are both vital, but it is also necessary to create clear limits. When it comes to sustaining healthy and lasting relationships, it is crucial to recognize and comprehend the patterns of behavior that occur inside a relationship. Becoming self-aware, being honest, and having the fortitude to confront the truth of the situation are all necessary qualities. It is important to note that you are not the only one who recognizes any of these tendencies in your relationship. In spite of the fact that taking action to address these difficulties might be difficult, doing so is very necessary for your long-term health. Setting clear boundaries, seeking the help of a professional, or making tough choices are all examples of situations in which it is beneficial to prioritize your emotional health. Always keep in mind that you are deserving of relationships that nourish, encourage, and assist you in developing. 11. Selective availability is the 11th point. Although they are not available, you are available. In the context of this discussion, the concept of selective availability conjures up an image of a connection that is unilateral, like to a telephone line in which only one partner is always accessible. Within the context of this dynamic, you are always prepared to actively listen, provide support, or provide a helping hand. Both your emotional calendar and your resources are fully available to them and can be accessed with ease. On the other hand, the availability of the other person is as uncommon as a comet in the night sky. It is sporadic, unexpected, and constantly occurring on their own terms. There are other factors at play than just hectic schedules or competing priorities that are contributing to this disparity in availability. The individual who is making use of the connection has made a conscious decision and taken a strategic posture in this regard. The fact that they are not readily available serves a twofold function. By doing so, it allows them to keep a comfortable distance from the situation and places them in a position of control. By restricting their availability, they create a dynamic in which you are left wanting more, and you often feel thankful for whatever time or attention that they choose to grant you. Whenever you make an attempt to connect or interact with someone in such a relationship, you often get excuses, delays, or straight-out disregard. It is possible that your calls will not be returned, that your texts will not be replied, and that your requirements will not be acknowledged. Whenever they do participate, it often aligns with their demands or agenda, which transforms the relationship into a one-way street in which your position becomes more about convenience than being a valued partner. A large emotional cost may be incurred as a result of this tendency. As a result, you start to doubt the value of your contributions and your worth in the eyes of the other person, which may lead to feelings of inadequacy. Upon coming to the realization that your efforts and availability are not being returned, it gives rise to feelings of irritation and resentment in the background. It is essential to have a good understanding of the pattern of selective availability. The process entails taking a step back and doing an objective assessment of the relationship's equilibrium between the amount of effort and the amount of availability. The realization that good relationships are constructed on the basis of mutual respect, effort, and presence is a prerequisite for grasping this concept. 12. Causing you to have feelings of guilt. Take into consideration a situation in which shame is analogous to the strings of a puppeteer, tugging the benign conscience and leading them down a route that they would not have chosen on their own will. Because of your feeling of obligation, empathy, or justice, the person who is manipulating you is able to tug these threads with finesse and use your sense of responsibility. It is possible that they may form demands in such a manner that dismissing them would make you seem insensitive or self-centered. There is also the possibility that they may bring to your attention previous favors or situations, so implying that there is an unsaid obligation that you are now expected to return. When it comes to generating guilt, this strategy is often covert and sneaky. Beginning with relatively little favors or concessions, it steadily escalates to increasingly serious demands as time goes on. As time passes, your boundaries begin to deteriorate, and your capacity to decline requests becomes less strong. This leaves you locked in a loop of guilt and acquiescence. Your wants and needs are either entirely ignored or pushed to the background in favor of those of the other person who takes the most important role. The capacity of this strategy to capitalize on a basic component of human nature, namely the need to be viewed as nice, helpful, and compassionate, is the reason why it is so powerful. These qualities are distorted by the user, who turns them into control levers by making you feel guilty about engaging in the activity. Rather of acting out of true desire or mutual respect, you discover that you are doing out of an enforced sense of responsibility, and as a result, you frequently experience feelings of resentment or exhaustion. In order to protect the integrity of your personal boundaries and your emotional well-being, it is essential that you be able to recognize when someone is using guilt as a psychological tool to manipulate you. Having this awareness requires you to be aware of the emotional currents that are present in your contacts and to differentiate between genuine pleas for assistance and efforts to take advantage of your benevolence. In addition to this, it is necessary to have the bravery to examine the reasons behind the demands and to exercise your right to decline without feeling bad about it. The 13th reason is a lack of personal involvement. Imagine that a discussion is a street that is continuously being traversed by the flow of ideas, experiences, and feelings in both directions. When two people are in a good relationship, this street is bustling with the interchange of care and interest between them. If, on the other hand, you are working with someone who is just interested in taking advantage of you, then this roadway will become a one-way lane. When you try to lead the topic toward your life, you often run into diversions or dead ends. Their tales and experiences are the driving force behind the discourse. This absence of personal involvement is shown in a number of different ways. Having conversations with people like that often seems like listening to monologues that are disguised as discussions. In the hopes of gaining your attention and sympathies, they excitedly go into the specifics of their day-to-day life, including the difficulties and victories they face. When the attention is directed at you, however, their curiosity begins to diminish. They may reply with fast motions, quickly shift the topic, or exhibit evident indifference or irritation. All of these behaviors are signs of disrespect. It would seem that your issues and experiences, regardless of how significant they may be, are scarcely even registered on their system of worry. Not only does this conduct demonstrate a lack of social decorum or conversational skills, but it also serves as a purposeful signal of the goals and objectives of the individual in question. By taking control of the discussion and ignoring your tales, they create a dynamic in which their requirements, ideas, and lives take priority over yours. This is a subtle sort of egocentrism in which the relationship revolves around their axis, and your function is limited to that of a spectator or a sounding board for expressing their thoughts. These kinds of encounters may have a profoundly demoralizing effect on anybody involved. Due to the fact that the underlying human desire for recognition and understanding is not satisfied, it might result in feelings of insignificance and dissatisfaction. In the long run, this imbalance may cause the foundations of the relationship to deteriorate, leaving you with the impression that you are more of an accessory in their life than an equal partner. Realizing that there is a lack of personal interest is really important. It entails being conscious of the dynamics of your relationships and being conscious of the emotional effect that these talks that are one-sided have on you. It is possible to seek out more reciprocal and meaningful connections by determining if the relationship is mutually enriching or depleting. This will allow you to seek out partnerships in which your tales and experiences are cherished and respected just as much as theirs. Number 14. Conversations that are conducted solo. Take into consideration a situation in which talks are analogous to a roadway that is crowded with the flow of ideas, experiences, and feelings in both directions on the street. When two people are in a good relationship, This street is bustling with the interchange of care and interest between them. If, on the other hand, you are working with someone who is just interested in taking advantage of you, then this roadway will become a one-way lane. When you try to lead the topic toward your life, you often run into diversions or dead ends. Their tales and experiences are the driving force behind the discourse. This absence of personal involvement is shown in a number of different ways. Having conversations with people like that often seems like listening to monologues that are disguised as discussions. In the hopes of gaining your attention and sympathies, they excitedly go into the specifics of their day-to-day life, including the difficulties and victories they face. When the attention is directed at you, however, their curiosity begins to diminish. They may reply with fast motions, quickly shift the topic, or exhibit evident indifference or irritation. All of these behaviors are signs of disrespect. It would seem that your issues and experiences, regardless of how significant they may be, are scarcely even registered on their system of worry. Not only does this conduct demonstrate a lack of social decorum or conversational skills, but it also serves as a purposeful signal of the goals and objectives of the individual in question. By taking control of the discussion and ignoring your tales, they create a dynamic in which their requirements, ideas, and lives take priority over yours. This is a subtle sort of egocentrism in which the relationship revolves around their axis, and your function is limited to that of a spectator or a sounding board for expressing their thoughts. These kinds of encounters may have a profoundly demoralizing effect on anybody involved. Due to the fact that the underlying human desire for recognition and understanding is not satisfied, it might result in feelings of insignificance and dissatisfaction. In the long run, this imbalance may cause the foundations of the relationship to deteriorate, leaving you with the impression that you are more of an accessory in their life than an equal partner. Realizing that there is a lack of personal interest is really important. They may communicate with one another on a regular basis, laugh together, and even take part in talks that seem to be personal in nature. It is important to note, however, that this seeming proximity never translates into actual meaning. Several other manifestations of this lack of true dedication might be seen. It is possible that you will observe that whilst they are quick to take pleasure in the advantages of the partnership, they are also quite quick to retreat when they are asked to make an effort or make a sacrifice. It is not uncommon for their support to be unstable or non-existent at times of crisis. There is a possibility that they are there at times of happiness and celebration, but they are conspicuously lacking during times of difficulty or vulnerability. On top of that, this surface intimacy often lacks essential components of trust and dependability, which are necessary for the maintenance of genuine partnerships. There is a possibility that plans may be established, but they will be abruptly cancelled, and promises are seldom fulfilled. They often choose to participate in the relationship on their own terms, with convenience and self-interest serving as their primary motivators. One of the reasons why people engage in this conduct is often to have a network of connections that can be used whenever it is required, without having to put in the emotional effort that is necessary for genuine relationships. It is a tactic that aims to maintain relationships with individuals that are such that they are valuable, but not so close that they need reciprocal commitment. In a sense, it is a method of emotionally and psychologically securing oneself, allowing one to reap the pleasures of proximity without the danger of developing a genuine connection or taking on responsibility. Recognizing the superficial closeness that exists between two people is essential to comprehending the dynamics that are at play in a relationship. It entails examining patterns of contact and asking if the apparent closeness is in line with acts that demonstrate true commitment and shared vulnerability. To determine if the relationship is balanced in terms of emotional involvement or inclined toward meeting their wants, it is necessary to consider the following. It is a relationship that is defined by a veneer of closeness, but it does not have the basis of true commitment and mutual progress. Once you have identified this pattern, you will be able to seek out and cultivate relationships that are founded on genuineness, reciprocity, and genuine emotional capacity. 16th on the list, a persistent lack of respect. A lack of respect that persists over time is more than just an occasional mistake of judgment or a slip that occurs in the heat of the moment at times. This is a continual thread that is woven into the fabric of the connection, and it presents itself in a variety of different ways. Comments that are insulting, attitudes that are condescending, or even a complete disrespect for your emotions and boundaries may all fall into this category. This conduct might be subtle, like a succession of little cuts, or it can be blatant, like a wound that damages your dignity. Both of these examples are possible. Imagine a garden in which respect serves as the food that brings about the flourishing of romantic relationships. In its absence, what is left is a desolate environment in which nothing that is healthy, even plants, can flourish. In such a situation, any effort at conversation or connection becomes a root littered with thorns of disdain and a lack of care for the potential discussion or connection. This lack of respect is used as a tactic, either intentionally or subconsciously, by the individual who is participating in the relationship in order to impose dominance or control over the other person. This is a method of diminishing the other, which allows one to keep the upper hand in a dynamic that ought to be characterized by equality and mutual respect. The foundations of the relationship are severely damaged as a result of this persistent lack of respect at all times. In situations when conflicts emerge, rather than being resolved with understanding and empathy, they are transformed into battles without any consideration for the emotional casualties that may occur. There is a disruption in the regular flow of interpersonal dynamics, which makes it difficult, if not impossible, to return to a level of normality. The importance of understanding and acknowledging this pattern of continual lack of respect cannot be overstated. Examining the larger behavioral pattern requires going beyond single occurrences and looking at the bigger picture. The key is to realize that respect is not limited to spectacular gestures alone. Rather, it is present in everyday encounters, in modest acknowledgements, and in the manner in which conflicts are resolved. In conclusion, a big signal of a person who does not consider you as an equal partner, but rather as a means to an aim, is a chronic lack of respect in a relationship. This lack of respect is a significant indicator. The fact that your emotions and dignity are being disregarded suggests that the relationship in question is fundamentally imbalanced and dysfunctional. It is essential for everyone who places a high value on their own self-respect and who is looking for partnerships that are founded on a foundation of mutual respect and justice to recognize this characteristic.